Ryan, there's this really lingering bad taste in the mouth about the Holyfield-Belfort fight, but it actually has grown bigger than that because of deception on the part of the promoters that all of these fights were supposed to be legit, real, particularly the last three heavyweight bouts. Uh, isn't it a crime to misrepresent and lie to the public about your product?
It should be, right? You would think so, but then all boxing promoters would be in prison, unfortunately. But yeah, no, this situation here in particular, though, was egregious because I was receiving the press releases from Triller and said, no, these are sanctioned boxing fights. Vander Holyfield is being licensed to fight again. He's, the return of the champion. And then, oh, wait, this is an exhibition, as they call it. But then as we see that an exhibition is still pretty dangerous, as evidenced by Vander Holyfield basically getting beaten up at the age of 58 years old. But at the end of the day, when you put out a press release, when you inform the public that this is a sanctioned fight, that this is anything other than just, a money grab, there should be some liability. But it seems that, when boxing became known as the red light district of sports, it's almost like, authorities looked away and they lost interest. I don't recall a serious investigation into corruption in boxing since I think the George W. Bush era, when the FBI raided the top rank offices over alleged fight fixing back in the 90s. But since then, it doesn't seem like it's really high on the agenda of the federal government.
I think at the core, it's really, all the cracks and loopholes in the system. First of all, professional sport in and of itself is entertainment. You're not representing the country, you're not entering amateur competitions like the Olympics. Secondly, of course, the federal system in the United States, where each state is independent, not like most other countries. And third, if the boxing organizations pretty much can go anywhere and do whatever they want. Case in point, this event was supposed to be held in California. By some miracle, Evander Holyfield, with a week and a half's notice after not having boxed for more than a decade, endangers himself and is allowed to compete in Florida. I don't know how the government can regulate this because everybody's gung-ho about freedom of speech and all their rights and that in the U.S. But I understand that even in the U.S., which is pretty tolerant of these things in celebrity boxing and all of that stuff, it raised a big stink as well.
Yeah, actually, I'm based in Florida, and the fight took place in Florida, and I was actually going to be there, except that I was busy doing literally anything else. But you're right. Yeah, I was going to be. I've been seen in some pretty shady places, but that was a bridge too far for me. But there was a case of commission shopping, where California was going to allow Oscar De La Hoya to get into the ring for an exhibition against Vitor Belfort. Even though Belfort is a very large man, he was bigger than Holyfield, who was a heavyweight champion. And it makes you think, like, what kind of planet are we on that Evander Holyfield can substitute for Oscar De La Hoya? You know what I mean?
That's what I was saying. I was already shocked that it was going to be a light heavyweight fight. And then all of a sudden it becomes a heavyweight fight. And
Belfort looks like a heavyweight.
Yeah, well, Belfort was okay with it, so he comes out on top. It's really crazy. And now all of a sudden we have calls for a Jake Paul fight, $30 million. The money's being tossed around there are really outrageous. Is this really, the trend? I mean, are we just going to keep seeing more and more of this? Is that how little content there is out there in boxing?
Well, I think it just shows the TikTokification of boxing, so to speak. It's not about
that's a technical term, right?
Yeah, that's the technical term, actually. Merriam-Webster is actually going to have that. Yeah. So it just shows you that it's whatever sells. It's like clickbait. It's the boxing version of clickbait. It's fast food. It's complete nonsense. It has nothing to do with the actual sport of boxing, but people like to see a car crash. They like to see a train wreck, and this is what it is. Vitor Belfort was an MMA fighter he has a 1-0 pro boxing record, if I recall correctly. And yeah, it's totally acceptable for him at 44 years old to step into a boxing ring with 58-year-old Evander Holyfield and just beat him up and then call out a YouTuber. And that was the big fight of the weekend. That was what I think more people were talking about that than they were talking about Oscar Valdez, fighting
Yeah.
against an Olympic gold medalist.
Well, our partners, Boyd Season and Dennis Principe, tackled that already last night. And, alam po ninyo, napakalaking kahihiyan nito kasi bago magkaroon ng pandemya, mahigit 2,000 ang boxing event sa Asia pa lang kada taon. So before the pandemic, there's boxing everywhere in Asia, particularly 2,000 plus events a year. But I don't understand really. First of all, I don't really consider this still boxing. I think it's just, it's like here in the Philippines, laban ng gagamba, you get two spiders, put them on a stick and see who kills who. So it is what the critics of boxing have been calling it. It's become a human cockfight. And it's just morbid curiosity, Mga usyoso tayo, gusto natin makakita ng panggaan, may nasagasan, may nabundol. We just want to see, like you said, car crashes and train wrecks. And there is absolutely no redeeming value in this whatsoever.
But when I was growing up, the clown shows, people usually wear makeup on their faces. Now they just, they go boxing. But what's interesting about it is because this is what draws the views, though. This is what people like. This is what people like. Like, I could never try to talk to just regular people about boxing fights. Like, I tried to mention the champion's name, but no idea. Jake Paul. Oh yeah, I know. Oh, what do you think about that Tito Ortiz versus Anderson Silva? I don't think about it, actually. Thanks for asking, though. So I think that it's sort of like just whatever sells. And there will be, if there's a market, there's going to be a used car salesman, who will go out there and sell it to the public. And that's why we had this card this last weekend. Only thing is, I think that they accidentally killed their market, because you had Triller had put on the Roy Jones Mike Tyson exhibition, and it was kind of almost like redeeming, because it's like, oh, these two older fighters, they showed that they can still go and they can get in good shape, and look at them.
There was some quality, and you expect a drop off.
Exactly. But now no one wants to see sad. And that's what we saw this past weekend. We didn't see the triumphant return of someone turning the hands of time. And what was eventually, really like a sparring session. It was, oh, Vitor-Belfort wants to fight Jake Paul. So he beats up a guy with one arm, who probably shouldn't be allowed, to even play a boxing video game at this stage after all the wars he's been in.
Yeah, exactly. I remember we were talking about it, that, Nisi mentioned that Holyfield's actually one of the few fighters who had still fought 15 rounders. So that's how far back he goes. And for him to actually come out of retirement with a week and a half's notice, it was dangerous. And then there were reports of him slurring his speech when he would be interviewed. And I'm more worried about him than boxing, because boxing is going to limp along as it always has.
Yeah, Larry Merchant said nothing's going to kill boxing, nothing's going to save boxing. And as long as there's great income inequality in this world, there's always going to be people willing to fight for their survival, and there will be an audience for people who want to see others put themselves in danger and overcome the challenges. But you're right. The one thing I would say, though, about Evander Holyfield is, yes, he did fight in, they should call the cruiserweight division junior heavyweight. That's how long ago he was the champion. Yes. But he's always sort of had that Southern kind of, he's from Mobile, Alabama, I believe. Like, he has that Southern kind of drawl. So it's hard to tell really, like, what is impact. I'm not even trying to make fun of it, but it's just, I remember him talking like that like 30 years ago too. So I'm just trying to be a little bit fair in terms of his speech, but you're right though. My other concern is not just that he's taken a lot of punches, and this, we're talking about 20 years ago. When I was in high school, I remember he was New York suspended him for the beating he took against Larry Donald. He was getting beaten up so bad by Larry Donald, who was not this ferocious, heavyweight destroyer. And it was so bad that they had to suspend his license to protect him from himself. Now, all these years later, somehow he's allowed to get back in the ring. And what was even sadder is that he had shoulder issues for a long time. So not only was he um, going in there as a diminished fighter, perhaps, not just from age, but also cognitively, because of how many punches he's taken, but he couldn't defend himself because his bread and butter punch was that left hook counter, and he tried it once and fell over and out of the ring. It was really sad to watch, and I think that whoever was responsible for putting that together did a disservice to boxing.